this could change everything for the Philadelphia 76ers heading into the 2025-2026 NBA season. As following the end of the 2025 NBA Finals, the East looks more wide open than ever before. We'll get to that here on today's show. Plus, on the back end, a new Quentin Grimes contract projection and some more intel on Ace Bailey at that number 3 overall pick. But before we do get started on today's show, a quick reminder that with the NBA draft only a couple of days away, we will be live on the channel for both days, Wednesday and Thursday, for both rounds of the NBA draft. So be sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications so you do not miss a thing. Our program will get underway at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, and we can all find out together who the Sixers will take at number 3 overall. Let's start with Tyrese Haliburton. Such a tough topic to really talk about right now. Prayers up to Hallie, of course, if you don't know. Tore his Achilles in the first quarter of Game 7 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Congrats to the Thunder on winning that championship, a well-deserved championship, really the best team all season long and a dominant year from Oklahoma City. But, man, for Tyrese Haliburton, just such a shame seeing him go down the way he did, playing through the injury, and the way he was playing through the entire postseason, clutch shot after clutch shot, leading this Pacers team where people thought they couldn't get to, which is one game away from winning an NBA title. So it sucks. Injuries are a part of the game. Playing through injuries are a part of the game. But seeing someone go down in this moment with this type of injury, with his story and this team's story, it really, really did hurt for NBA fans in general, not just Pacers fans. But look, now that he's out, again, it's an unfortunate reality, but injuries do happen. And he's now the third star out east to have suffered a torn Achilles here in the postseason. He joins Jayson Tatum, Damian Lillard, now, of course, Tyrese Haliburton. They're all more likely than not going to miss the entire 2025-2026 season. So you think about the Celtics, the Bucks, the Pacers, 3 teams that you'd expect fully healthy to be at the top of the Eastern Conference, probably not going to be true championship contenders as we look ahead to next season. Sure, the teams around these guys are all still pretty good. You know, the Celtics still have a good squad without Tatum. Still got Giannis on the Bucks, but the rest of that team's kind of terrible. The Pacers have a lot of depth. They've been a very good team, even without Tyrese Haliburton. But look, it just doesn't look like any of these 3 teams are true threats heading into next year when they normally are. So that leaves the East pretty wide open, right? You have the New York Knicks, of course, who I think are probably the biggest threat right now you could consider, the biggest contender, in my opinion, left out of all the teams in the East with their loaded roster. Like, I hate the Knicks as much as anybody, but you got to admit they have a talented team, and depending on who they hire as their next head coach, different moves they can make in the offseason, they should be right at the top of the East, along with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, yes, do fold often come playoff time, but regular season-wise, at the very least, they should be contending for the number 1 seed. We'll see if they make any moves. They also have kind of been hampered by injuries when it comes to the playoffs, but still choke all the time. You know, I'm not necessarily super scared of them in terms of the postseason play. You, of course, had the new-look Orlando Magic as they have traded for Desmond Bane, so how quickly does that sort of start to gel together? If he gets in there, they're looking really good. Orlando could be a team that you have to start worrying about sooner rather than later with Paolo Banchero, with Franz Wagner. They definitely got a squad over there in Orlando. And then another young, up-and-coming team in the Detroit Pistons, who really gave the Knicks all they could handle in that first round with Cade Cunningham and the surrounding pieces. Another team that was one of the worst teams in NBA history not too long ago, now looking like they could be one of the better teams in the East. But still, like the Knicks, the Cavs, the Pacers, or the Pistons, the Magic, like it's not like any of these teams are true juggernauts or really as competitive as what you might see out west. So really the East, anybody's to have at this moment. Now, depending on where you look at the odds to win the East, you'll see some different places have the Knicks as the favorites. Some places have the Cavs as the favorites. What I've seen has the Cavs as the favorites to win the East at plus 225, followed by the Knicks, the Magic, the Celtics, still tied for third here, even without Jayson Tatum heading into next year. And then the Sixers, I'm seeing around that 4 through 6 range in terms of odds to win the East. So again, like it's just more wide open than we really ever used to seeing, at least next year. After that, when some of these guys come back from the injuries, then you'll start seeing these teams being competitive again. But you're getting 1 year here in which you might have to take advantage of an opportunity if you're Philadelphia. Now, for the Sixers, How does this change their strategy? Do they try to go more all in, focus on this 1 year? Unfortunately for Philadelphia, it really does kind of just depend, as we continue to say, on the health of their top guys in Joel Embiid and in Paul George, because, of course, we're talking about injuries in the show to some of these other top guys. If Embiid's not healthy, then it really doesn't matter for Philadelphia. But could this change Morey's strategy a little bit, particularly when it comes to the draft? Ace Bailey, we talked about being the guy with that high-end upside, right? But now maybe Morey sees the landscape of the East. He says, you know what? Maybe I do trade back a little bit, add another NBA player who could help us right now and still get a player around 7 and 8. Maybe I like somebody like VJ Edgecombe, his ability to impact the game defensively right away, even if he has some more developing to do on the offensive side of the ball. And maybe it pushes the Sixers and Daryl Morey to try to bring back Gershon Yabusele in addition to a Quentin Grimes and really go all in on this roster this season. So we'll see what the Sixers end up doing. But regardless, I think they should be a team people are talking about as one of those top teams in the Eastern Conference, with the Pacers, the Bucks, the Celtics probably not being at the top of that conference next season. But you predicted for me, who do you think is going to win the East next season? Will it be the Sixers? Will it be somebody else? I know we're quite a ways away from that right now, but let me know who you got winning the Eastern Conference next year. Still a couple more topics to get to on Quentin Grimes and Ace Bailey that kind of go back to this idea of the East being wide open. But before we do, I mentioned the draft in just a couple of days. If you want to get your hands on an official 76ers NBA draft hat, the hats that the prospects will be wearing on the stage on draft night, you can get yours today at chatsports.com/76draft hat. There's a couple of different styles, different colorways. There's a bucket hat thrown in there as well. If you like to go to the beach often, I'm a bucket hat guy myself, so I might have to pick that one up. Again, that's chatsports.com/76draft hat. I'll have that link down below in the comments and the description of today's show. So we're moving on now to Quentin Grimes, of course, the restricted free agent for Philadelphia, who could cash out big this offseason because of the way he played towards the end of the year with the Sixers after being shipped over from the Dallas Mavericks. But Jake Fischer has some new intel on a potential contract for Grimes that honestly sounds pretty good for 76ers fans. Here's what Fischer had to say on the Steinline. Multiple numbers crunchers we consulted with indicated that Grimes, after his breakout scoring for the Sixers in March, does appear to be heading for a payday that starts north of the $14.1 million mid-level exception. And to me, when I read that, that is great news for Philadelphia. And I'll tell you why. Because some of you might be saying, well, how is that great news? Or saying he's going to be paid more than the $14 million mid-level exception. We already knew that. Yes, but the fact that when they consulted, and Jake Fischer consulted some of these salary guys, some of these number crunchers in the NBA, they could have said, yeah, man, he's looking to get $25 million like some of us here, on this show and across Sixers Twitter and Sixers media have been expecting that Grimes can maybe get $20 to $25 million. But the fact that they're saying above that $14.1 million mid-level exception, that tells me maybe it comes in under $20 million. Maybe this contract now can come in around $17.5, $18 million. And it makes sense considering there's not a whole lot of NBA teams out there that have cap space to throw Grimes a huge offer. And honestly, I think that's a pretty fair offer for Grimes as well. Now, of course, his stint with the Sixers at the end of this past season was phenomenal, right? Putting up nearly 22 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, while shooting efficiently, showing more on-ball skills than he's ever shown in his entire career. He was really handed the keys on such an awful team. But again, it was on a Sixers team that was pretty injured. They were out of it. He was kind of allowed to do whatever he wants to do. His role, I have to imagine, will not be the same if this team is fully healthy. But he has earned himself a decent amount of money in that range. But now that we're hearing it could be under 20 million, maybe closer to 15, 16, 17, again, that's great for the Sixers because it gives them a larger opportunity to improve the roster elsewhere and maybe even keep somebody like a Gershon Yabusele. And again, going back to the idea of the East being wide open, I would love this team to find a way to keep Yabu. He was such a key piece and such a consistent piece of this team last year, which really didn't have any consistency at all. So I'd love to be able to bring him back. And so if Grimes' contract does come in closer to 15, 16-ish million, then that 20, 25 plus number would really allow the Sixers to build out the rest of this roster and have a team that could compete in the Eastern Conference heading into next season. And we'll finish up here with just some quick intel on Ace Bailey. The more and more I'm hearing about Ace Bailey, the more and more I just think he's not going to be the pick for Philadelphia. Look, he's someone I wanted to be the pick, and I still might consider taking at number 3 overall, honestly, just because of the ability. But given the fact that the Sixers might be in even more win-now mode than they already are, and some of the stuff we're hearing about Ace now, it really does seem likely he's going to fall a little bit. So here's what an NBA agent had to say to Rafael Barlow, NBA draft expert, regarding Ace. I think Ace is trying to get to Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn. With Washington as the top choice, Brooklyn close behind, I think those are the 2 destinations that his camp has in mind. It's all about putting Ace in the best position to get shots and to make sure he can get a big second contract. Look, I read that last line, that Ace's priority and his team's priority is to get him somewhere where he can get up a bunch of shots and get a big second contract. If that's the case, man, you do you, Ace Bailey, but I don't want you on this team at this point, dude. Like, you're not even in the NBA yet, right? And we're already thinking about a second deal. We're already thinking about where can I go to make the most money possible. And look, I understand, right, as an NBA player, you want to get paid. You want to go somewhere where you feel like you can show off your skill set. But first of all, Ace would lose somewhere from $10 to $15 million if he does drop from number 3 to number 7, number 8. So he's losing money right there. Even if he does try to make it up in the back end, is he just content with putting up a bunch of points and empty stats in a team that's losing a bunch of games early in his career just so he can cash out and get a big bag from that team on a second deal? If that's his priority, that's his team's priority, that tells me all I need to know. It's just not a player that I would want on this team that's trying to win games, where he'd be more of an in the rotation kind of guy, not someone who's really being focused on as the guy. So look, that's your priority. That's fine. But that's not something I want on this team. But not completely out of the equation yet for the Sixers. Another NBA agent regarding Ace Bailey says that Daryl Morey does not care about all the noise. If he wants Ace, that is exactly who he's going to take. And we've kept hearing this, that despite everything going on with Ace Bailey, and he's skipping his visit with Philadelphia, and he wants to go somewhere where he can just play his brand of basketball and put up a bunch of points and make a bunch of money. Despite all this, Daryl Morey is not out on him yet. Now, of course, the Sixers aren't going to come out and say, even if they were, that they are not drafting Ace Bailey. You don't want any team to know anything about your strategy heading into the draft. But one thing we know about Morey is that he's never afraid to do what he wants to do, and he does like taking these big swings. But he also likes taking guys that are more high-character guys. And one thing he said this offseason is that he wants to get younger, more dynamic, more athletic. You can do all that with someone like VJ Edgecombe, who can impact the game right away on the defensive end and still grow a little bit on the offensive end. If you're Daryl Morey, you're the Sixers, with everything going on right now, factoring in this Ace Bailey drama, factoring in the fact that the Eastern Conference is looking more wide open than ever heading into next year, who are you taking at number 3? Is it Ace Bailey type AB? Is it VJ Edgecombe type VJ? If it's somebody else, comment their name down below. Of course, you can always share your thoughts. I want you to get involved here on today's program. Appreciate it if you've watched all the way thus far on today's show. And one final reminder again to join us for our NBA draft coverage. We will analyze, of course, the Sixers selections, but also every single pick made during the NBA draft will be live an hour before the draft does kick off. So be sure to subscribe and join us live on Wednesday.